Today's guest, Dylan, has come on to share his knowledge and experience with addiction. So, thank you so much for being with us today, Dylan, and tell us about yourself.
Thank you, Jasmine. It's really good to be here. And like you said, I'm in recovery from addiction. So, that's kind of the simple explanation of my story. But I guess would it be helpful for me to go into my whole story now? Is that kind of how we want to start this off?
Uh, Go, you can tell a little bit about your story and how you got to where you are now. You don't have to
Yeah.
get
Yeah,
into
not
the
not like
nitty
the whole
gritty,
book.
just a little
Right.
context to how you
Yeah.
got to where you are now, kind of thing. I would say, don't have to get down dirty, don't worry.
Yeah, gotcha. So I'm in recovery from addiction. I got into recovery in 2004, and I was coming off of a bunch of different substances, drugs, alcohol, crack, weed, a lot of different things. I grew up not using drugs or drinking, meaning that like I was a scholar athlete in high school and didn't pick up a drink until college or didn't use drugs until even after college. I only went to college for a year, but point is I kind of had a late start compared to a lot of people. Uh, however, if
Yeah,
we're talking about,
definitely compared to me.
yeah, when did you start?
Um, like 10 or 11,
Oh wow, yeah. It's always
sneaking
amazing
drinks,
to me. What's that?
sneaking drinks and cigarettes, and then weed at 14, and then hard drugs at 16, and then, yeah. But it was mostly booze for me. That
Yeah,
was
well, it's
my
always
choice.
amazing. It's always amazing to me how people that started earlier are able to recover because the brain is like so much more vulnerable at that earlier age. It's like
Your
harder to
brain
change.
Well, even like when I was in school, they told us that your brain is not fully developed until you're 25. So
Exactly.
by using and doing those drugs at a early age really affects your um your brain, and it definitely has affected my mental health due to doing those things and my brain not properly being able to progress, I suppose. So you like you starting later definitely would have been helpful for recovery. I definitely agree with that. But
Yeah, I
anyways,
think it still was very, very challenging, but I'm grateful that I didn't start earlier,
I
I
wish.
yeah. Well, I had some like I don't know, some issues that alcohol and drugs helped with for a little while. So even though I was a scholar athlete, I was definitely depressed. And I started having suicidal ideation my junior, senior year of high school. Um, Even though I was getting good grades and all this type of stuff, I just was not okay. Mentally, I was not okay. And so I didn't pick up a drink or a drug yet because I saw what alcohol did to my grandfather and my family. Like my friends would do drugs and they would change and become different. So I was aware that it
Mhm.
might not be a good thing for me. However, I didn't have coping mechanisms. So, because
That's the
grades and
that's
sports,
it right there. It's the
yeah,
coping mechanisms, and if you, especially because I've had suicidal ideation and
yep,
horrible anxiety since childhood, and I don't know why, but it's like why I started using was to cope. And I like you said with sports and stuff, I was a really really good figure skater. So when I was skating, that was my I didn't need that stuff because I had something taking my mind off, but that was a positive. But like when I was the same way when I got to college and became drinking age, my parents separated and it caused a whole lot of trauma, which led to my alcoholism. So I understand 100% why they don't teach us coping mechanisms enough, and we just want to feel better.
yeah. And you bring up a really good point, which is that our systems pretty good about hobbies, like getting kids involved in different hobbies, whether it's figure skating or for me it was wrestling. Like those, like you said, are good things, but they're not healing. If there's deeper issues, the deeper issues need to be healed. And that's the challenge that I found is like I had deeper issues that nobody really talked about. I mean, now you hear about trauma more. This is like 20, 30 years ago. And so
Yeah.
now people are more aware of mental health challenges, trauma, and stuff like that. That being said, even though they're more aware, there's still not really a great system in place to address those, especially at an earlier age. So for
And
me,
with men. And with
that,
men, there also still that stigma that men have to be a certain way and can't have feelings. And there's still so
right.
much pressure that way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that was part of my recovery was finding ways to access my emotions, to feel my emotions, to get in touch with my body. Some of that was like somatic therapy, trauma therapy. Some of it was yoga, things like meditation, men's work. Like there were a lot of different tools that I accumulated in this recovery journey that definitely helped. I just wish I had them earlier on because it could have saved me a lot of suffering, you know.
I agree. I agree 100%. And I think that's what I mean by saying one size doesn't fit all. So it's kind of a journey for everybody that's in recovery because you've got to find the things that help you. I call it deep diving, getting to the root cause of why you were using. And however you do that is that's how you're going to be able to finally reach sobriety and maintain it is by being able to realize what it is that caused the problem and fix it. Like you said, you have to have tools in your box to be able to um understand yourself and fix yourself. And I wish they would teach like a course in like grade 11 or 12 about something like this because it would before drinking age and everything. I think it would really stop a lot of addiction. But anyway, sorry. I'm just a chatterbox, sorry.
No, it's good. I appreciate what you're sharing. Like it 100% makes sense. And I'm on board with that for sure. I mean, part of it for me too was finding people who did have more experience than me because this was something that I didn't even know how to navigate it. I mean,
Mhm.
the conversation around addiction and mental health and all this stuff wasn't really happening 30 years ago. And so
No.
in high school, when I was dealing mental health, there wasn't really a conversation about it. So starting to hear other people talk about it gave me a lens to look through that helped me to identify in myself what was going on because I kind of needed that mirror. I didn't really even know
Mhm.
how to give words to what I was experiencing. The other part of it was finding people who had a way out because it was really tricky to navigate something, healing something, recovering from something that I had no idea how to do. you know and while I might not every single thing that I learned from every single person was helpful, I did need people that were a little farther down the road than me to guide
Mhm.
me out of the wilderness, so to speak.
I I had a person he was native and he had gone on like he was I met him in AA. He had gone on like what you would call a spirit quest through his cultural stuff, right? And
Awesome.
he was like a mentor to me. He was very wise. Like he passed away and maybe that's why I wasn't super successful in AA because I left after that, but he was one of those people that was really wise and you would learn something from him every time you would talk to him. And you need those people, like you said, to kind of explain it to you and also kind of to guide you in certain ways because you don't know where to go, like you said, right?
Yeah. I mean, you can read some of this stuff like maybe in a book, but one quote that I really love, and I don't even know who it comes from, is that the map is not the terrain. So if you're
Oh, I love that.
someone were to give you a map, right, and say, okay, they were to like map out, okay, you're going from here to here, but then you start to actually walk that terrain, there might be a pitfall here, a boulder here, it's like it's not the terrain. The map is not the terrain. And so having people who've actually walked the terrain, I think is like really valuable because they'll know like the nuances and subtleties that we might not necessarily understand yet. And
That's
this,
why I found regular counsel, like a counselor that has not had experience with addiction, not very helpful because, like you said, they've never walked that road. But if you, like, my addictions doctor has had an addiction herself, so she is the one that helps me stay sober, and that's where I found sobriety because she does therapy with me as well. But because she has walked that road, she knows exactly what to say or what tools to give me in a situation so I don't relapse per se if I'm talking about something that's stressful in my life. She'll tell me or give me tools on how to not fall into the pit again, you know?
awesome.
So, yeah, you need those people and you need to leave the other people that were negative way behind you.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the culture has a lot to do with it, right? Like the people that we surround ourselves with, for better or worse, have a lot to do with how our life pans out and how we view things, the behaviors we do, you know. I'm sure you've been around a friend long enough, you start to even talk like they do or vice versa, right?
Mhm.
That can be for
That's so funny you said that because it's so true. If you have a friend and they like say a certain phrase all the time, you'll all of a sudden be like saying that phrase, and you're like catch yourself, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, totally. Totally. Yeah. So
So you went on like so you're saying you went on like a bit of a journey with um I love meditation myself for helping when with stress, and even that wasn't something that I knew to do in it when I was going through addiction. And you said you did like the somatic healing and the kind of holistic healing did you do? Because I used to work in holistic healing.
So I did something called, it's a variation of a few different things, really. The process I did was called fear memory integration, which is a somatic based therapy for dealing with trauma. Very helpful. And it's based off of a guy named Art Janoff who developed this thing called primal therapy back in the 70s. He was like one of the originators of somatic therapy before it was popular. Now, guys like Bessel van der Kolk, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, or there's a
Hmm.
book, Body Keeps the Score, a really amazing book. Well, it's very, very similar to that, right? It's like not talk therapy, it's getting into the body and getting into the pain that's kind of stored in our body and learning how to be with it long enough to express it and release it and heal it. You know, it's kind of an art. It's like, you know, if you talk about body language, you know, we like
Hmm.
that term. Well, the body actually does have a language and it takes a while to learn it. Just like we would have to learn any other language. We can't just pick it up and be speaking French or Spanish in one day. We have to learn it. And so the body's has a very similar language. It takes time to learn. You know, a tightness in the chest, you know, a thing in the belly. It's like our body's trying to tell us a story, and we have to take time to read that story and to let the story come out, you know, and that's
Uh-huh.
art that's not taught in our culture. And to your point about men specifically, I think men just naturally are less connected to their emotions and body, and then you have the pressure to not be emotional. You know,
Yeah, and that's why I said that with men, I feel like it's harder because they have that stigma of having to, or not stigma, but have that label or impression that they have to be a certain way. It's just how it's imposed on us through generations and generations and generations. It's like something that's hard to break. And I know now that they're coming up with a lot more men-based groups so that men can actually try to rewire that and like, do kind of like what you did and learn how to feel again because they've turned it off, you know?
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And that was one of the most helpful things in my journey was having somebody that could guide me through that process because it was not like sitting in a therapist's office for an hour and talking. It was very different than that. And it was very foreign to me. And it took some trust and courage to, you know, like to trust in this person in this process because it was odd, it was uncomfortable, it was weird. It was like all my mind had all these things, these beliefs about this process
Mhm.
that if I trusted my beliefs, I wouldn't have gone through the process, right? And so there's an element of like just letting go and
Yeah.
trusting in the process, not my own resistance to or thoughts about the process, you know?
And it's when once you let go too, it's so freeing because it just kind of allows you to open up and take in what
Yeah.
is going on, and you're more present in what you like are taking in. And like I said, with there's not all like the ways of addiction and or recovery, the old ways that what you did to get sober is not something that an addictions doctor will offer or even suggest those books or anything. And that's why I like to talk to people like you who can come on and say that so that other people can hear it and think, this is a better fit for me, you know?
Yeah, and there's also like for me, it hasn't been one thing. I mean, I did get sober through the 12 steps, which was very helpful for me. But then there were things that couldn't solve,
You
right?
don't, the thing with the 12 steps, and this is the only problem I have, is they don't dive deeper. It's always surface level. I call it graduating AA or NA or CR or whatever. You're graduating because you're able to stay sober now because that's the part that's the beginning is the meetings and all that stuff. But once you get to the part where you're able to stay sober, you still have all these feelings and you don't have the coping mechanisms. And that's where you go and you do things like what you did where you try to fix, like rewire. There's so many ways to go and fix, rewire your brain, deep dive, find the root causes. And that's where the meetings lack because you need that second tier to fully be able to sustain recovery, I believe.
Yeah, no, I mean, you definitely need something to deal with like trauma. And
Mm-hmm.
12 steps are not set up to deal with trauma. And for a
They
lot of
don't
people with
even
addiction,
mention trauma, and everybody's there because they have trauma.
right, that's what I was going to just say exactly. So a lot of people with addiction have a history of trauma, and that's needs to be addressed at some point, you know?
Hasn't been changed since the 1920s, and I feel like that's the reason why, because back then they didn't really talk about trauma, right? So maybe if they updated the program to be more what life's like today, where we are more open to talk about these things in our culture, it would be more helpful to people. But I think that a lot of the people that have been in AA for 30 years don't want to see a change, and that's why it stays that way. And that's why so many people are looking for a second thing, you know what I mean? Like a second, you know what I mean? A second program or a second way, you know? Like I know a lot of people that go to CODA or ACA afterwards to deal with like things, or like I even go to Celebrate Recovery where you can go in there and be like, I'm here to talk about having issues with anger. So like there just needs to be more diving into yourself because how are you ever going to fix yourself if you never figure yourself out, you know?
Yeah, well, I think that the like any of this stuff is really helpful for its purpose. Like 12 steps wasn't designed to address trauma or underlying issues so much as it was addressed to address alcoholism and addiction. The problem with that is, like you said, trauma is interconnected with that. But I think
Mhm.
given that there is a space to go to get sober, let's say, and
With
there is a
people that
space
understand it, it does. Yeah, it does
and there is
make
a
you feel
space to go to deal with
personally.
trauma, right? So I think finding our own collection of tools is part of the benefit of
Yeah,
working in recovery pro and also the challenge because there's not a one stop shop for everything that we need, you know?
well, that's why I say like it's like a journey because you like you said, there's not just a one fix all solution, and you need to keep going throughout your journey to fully understand yourself, to fully be able to deal with life, whatever's thrown at you, and keep yourself sober. And that's the end goal, pretty much, right? Is to maintain sobriety no matter how hard life is. And that's the goal, at least for me.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, it's to recover who I really am. You know, addiction, trauma, like all these things disconnected me from myself, from my spirit on a fundamental level. And
Oh
it
yeah,
takes a
I
lot of
like
time.
that. That's well said.
Thank you. Yeah, it takes a lot of time to heal that. And a lot of support and a lot of resources. It's doable, you know, and it's a beautiful journey, but it's not easy. And it's not something that's, you know, to be taken like lightly. Like there's a lot of resistance to our pain. There's a lot of resistance to the things that would help us. Generally speaking, most people have resistance to things that are uncomfortable, to things that are painful. And unfortunately, the recovery healing process, as beautiful as it can be, as joyful as it can be, it's equally as painful and terrifying at times, especially if you're facing trauma. Because the deeper the trauma goes, the more resistance there is to really facing it and feeling it and healing it, you know?
Exactly. And like being like there's almost like because you're angry at your trauma almost. So it's hard to like let go of those things that kind of keep you feeling trapped in your trauma. You it's like I can't find the words to say it, but like you fight against it because it's just like something that you're angry, you don't want the trauma, and you're resisting trying to get better because it's just mentally in your head that you don't want this trauma, you don't want this in your head. But if you the second you let go and accept that everything that's happened to you and that is going to happen to you is and isn't in your control, and there's ways to help yourself, then you can finally take in the help, I think.
Yeah, yeah, well said. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
So what do you do now? Or wait, how long have you been sober for? Well, that's a question.
So let's see, like almost 21 years. So September
Congrats.
4th, 2004.
I figured you had long-term sobriety just from talking to you, so that's why I asked you that, right? But so what do you do now? Like what does your life look like now then?
So I work at a recovery center, actually, like a community recovery center. I also teach yoga and I'm a personal trainer. So a lot of the things that helped me that I learned early on from other people are things that I do for a job now, you know, and kind of carry on.
Hmm.
Um, and then outside of work, you know, I got hobbies. I love running. I do trail running, stuff like that. I do improv classes. You know,
Just
like,
have
yeah,
fun with it, right?
yeah, yeah. Try to have fun with it. Right, right, right. You know, it's a balance between adulting and doing the stuff like the daily stuff that we may not want to do, but have to do just to be you know, a healthy adult. And then it's finding joy, you know, just having joy in like the simple things, you know, getting some
Oh,
sunshine, going for a run, you know, laughing with a friend, you know,
what you're
just things
actually
to deal with.
doing is what you're actually doing is something that I learned from a doctor I interviewed is you're actually controlling your dopamine by doing what you're doing because your dopamine basically because you're accomplishing the things that like you said adulting and having to do um you by going for a run or doing something that is like a reward. It's training your dopamine to go back to normal from drug addiction by you're controlling it by the way it works is it builds as you work towards something and then you give yourself a reward like going to an improv class and then that is how you control your dopamine basically is by pushing yourself to do the things you need to do, but also giving yourself a reward at the end is the way she said you control your dopamine. And you're doing that without even being taught. And that's
Mhm.
probably why you've been so successful with your sobriety because you on your own figured out how to control your dopamine, right? And fix that
Yeah, I can
part
see
of the
that. Yeah, yeah.
brain.
That's a really good point. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. More balanced dopamine. You know, because
Mm.
before it's like that spike and then the drop and spike and drop, and now it's, you know, healthier balance.
Yeah, and she always said that you have to give yourself a reward after like she likes candy. So she's like every time that I accomplish the things I'm supposed to accomplish, I'll have a candy. And she's like, that is like my reward. But like I'm saying, because you like to run and do other things, that's your reward, which is where you get that dopamine hit instead of using drugs to get it, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
It's by being successful in doing light daily life, basically, right? Because as
yeah,
addicts, we don't know how to do daily life for nothing.
right.
So
For
that,
sure.
yeah, so I think that's cool. There's so many people that I talk to that are the same, and I tell them that I'm like, you're actually my doctors told me this is exactly how you she trains people to use their dopamine, and you guys are already doing it. I guess it's a natural innate thing in us to know how to do. I think it's just um her explaining it is just what she was doing, but it is just something that's helpful for people in recovery to know, right? So that's why I bring it up.
Definitely. Yeah, it's a really good point for sure.
So
Yeah.
you work at a rehab center. Now
Center.
do
Yeah, Mass.
what what's it
I live
called?
in. What's that?
What's it called and where are you located?
I live in Massachusetts in an area called the Berkshires of Massachusetts.
Okay, the Berkshires, yeah.
Berkshires, and I work at a place called Living in Recovery, which is a peer recovery support center. So it's a little different. It's interesting. In Massachusetts, they have things called peer recovery support centers. They're not treatment centers or rehabs. They're not detoxes or outpatient programs. They're community centers for people in recovery that are run by staff like myself, but that are facilitated by the peers. So everybody in there, including the staff, is in recovery, but the peers, the members we call them, not clients, they're members of our center, community center, have a say in how we use our resources, funds, time, space, and also can even facilitate their own groups or have their own classes and stuff like that. So it's a really unique offering, and it fills a gap between, meetings or therapy and home life and treatment, because a lot of people do those things, but then they go back out into the world and there's nowhere really to go outside of their 1 hour therapy session or their 1 hour meeting, unless they're in treatment. What do they do unless they're going back to their same old environment with the same old people doing the same old thing, and they're trying not to. So the community
And
center kind of fills that gap.
it also like in psychology, there's a theory of community, right? By I think it's Karl Marx. And it's like if you feel a part of a community, you're less likely to have like depression and you're less likely to go out and do negative acts. He just states negative acts. He doesn't state what they are, but by you guys allowing them to be a part of it and a part of how to allocate resources and all that kind of stuff really helps with them to stay sober too, because they're feeling like they're a part of something. And people that like as addicts we don't get a lot of chances or a lot of you know they were a lot of people don't like allow that, right? So it's like amazing that you guys do that. Like I wish they would do that up here in Canada, because that sense of community and that a sense of allowing them to be a part of the center and a part of the choices that are made there keep them going, because they'll go home and they'll think about, oh, yeah, this could help the resource center. I'm going to go back and try to employ that, right? And it keeps them in a motivated, positive, community feeling state where they feel like they belong somewhere. They feel
Yeah.
like they can have input.
Yep.
That is such a great idea. I wish there was more of those.
Yeah, it's a unique offering for sure. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good thing for sure.
Because yeah, community is definitely well needed. So you don't do any coaching on your own or anything, do you?
Occasionally, Yeah, occasionally. I've gone
Yeah.
back and forth with different things, coaching, speaking. I used to be a professional speaker for a little bit, offer coaching for a little bit. Right now, I'm not doing that, but I'll probably get back into it at some point. Yeah.
Okay. Just wondering because I'm thinking about just trying to help if anybody wanted to contact you or something like that. I was just seeing if you did coaching or something like that because
Yeah,
obviously
well, I do.
you've
Yeah.
done. I just think you could
Yeah.
help people, so I was just wondering.
Yeah, no, for sure. If they wanted to
So,
email me, and I can send this to you as well, I do coaching, and Dylan at dylanlundgren.com would be the best way to email me. Um, and yeah, I do coaching. I just haven't been doing it lately, but totally able to do it. So yeah.
okay, and these centers are there's more than one, like they're all over Massachusetts, or are they just in your area?
They are all over Massachusetts. Yeah, Massachusetts has a bunch of different peer recovery. They're called PRSCs, Peer Recovery Support Centers, and there's a bunch of them in Massachusetts.
And do they have a website, like if somebody wanted to look it up?
Well, as a category, like each one has kind of their own contact info. So mine,
Okay, so
the center I
but I
work at
can
is called Living in Recovery, which is in Pittsfield, Massachusetts.
so if people wanted to in their city, like you said it was what is say what it is again, and then they can Google that in their city. So what is the name exactly again?
So it's called a Peer Recovery Support Center.
Okay, so Peer Recovery Support Center. If you live in Massachusetts, you can Google one that would be in your area, like he said. Just because I think this is a really good idea for people to come back from the loneliness, and feel part of something again. So that's why I'm trying to promote this as hard as I can for you because I really honestly think that like every it's such a lonely thing in addiction and to bring in to become a part of the community again and feel like you're accepted again is such a mental health help as well as a sobriety help. So I just think it's a really good idea that I might pitch in my city myself. I don't know yet. I got to figure that one out.
Yeah, yeah, no, it is. It's a really cool thing for sure. Yeah.
um, is there anything that you want to say before I let you go? Because I know that you got some stuff to do.
Well, I would say don't be afraid to ask for help if you're going through something. Don't be afraid to, talk about it and find people who can relate and hopefully people who have a little more experience with it than you so they can help to guide you out of it, whatever it is that you're going through. But whatever it is you're going through, you're not alone. I mean, there's always somebody who has had a similar, if not the same challenge. So I think that's something to keep in mind too, because we can look out in the world and just think that we're so alone or we're so uniquely messed up because it just based on maybe social media or how people look walking down the street or how it looks on the outside, we may think that everyone else is fine and we're the only ones that aren't, and that's just not true. So
I love that because I get envy from people on social media and I think they have the best life ever, but I don't really know what's going on behind closed doors and it gets me every time and I have to sit there and realize that and go through it with myself. So I love that you said that because it is so true.
yeah, yeah, well, it's good to meet you. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much. I am like so glad you came on because, like I said, I really do like to show people that there are so many ways to go on this journey to find sobriety. You don't need to be afraid. And just hearing it from other people, it really helps. You know what I mean? Like you hear it and you're like, that's a good idea. Maybe I'm going to look into that, especially like in your area where they have these centers. Um, because I do have a large US following as well as Canadians. So
Awesome.
yeah, so people that's what I mean, like perspectives, different ways, even with the 12 steps, and then you go find another tool or another place like the peer program that you have, like I just think all of it is so important because people get so afraid to take that first step that when they hear other people who've done it and how their lives are better now and how they feel because of it, it shows that there's hope and there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And so I really appreciate everything that you said. Thank you so much for
Same to you,
coming
Jasmine.
on.
Yeah, you're very welcome.
Well, you take care and have a good rest of your day. Thank you
And
so
you too.
much.
Got it.